Hi friends, once again welcome back to the Nurse channel. So today we are going to discuss one of the important topics from the anatomy. So that is anatomy of the heart. So in this video we are mentioning only regarding the anatomy of the heart. In this physiology of the heart is not included. Why? Because if we include the physiology, the length of the video may extend. So the physiology itself we will deal in another video. So before going to the topic, let me remind you, if you are seeing this channel for the first time, kindly subscribe the channel, and if you like this video, kindly share it with your nursing friends. Okay, so we will go to the topic of discussion today, that is anatomy of the heart. So today it is purely a lecture session. There is no question and answers in this session. So only we will be dealing with some points regarding anatomy of the heart. So I request you one thing, whatever points we are discussing today in this session is very important. So maximum try not to skip the video in between, because whatever points what we are going to mention in the sessions cannot be skipped. That's why. Okay, so moving on to our topic, anatomy of the heart. So as you all know, the heart is a vital organ in our body, and it is the transport system of the body. So the first important point, what is the weight of the heart? How much an adult heart weighs? So the normal adult heart weighs about 325 grams. Okay, the weight of the heart is approximately 325 grams, and the size of the heart can be explained as, if we make a fist of our hand, so how much it will be, that much will be the size of the heart. Okay, so that is the size of the heart. Now we will see where the heart is positioned in our body. So heart is positioned in the mediastinal cavity. So where is the mediastinal cavity? So mediastinal space is the space between two lungs. Okay, so if you see the positions of the ribs, we can tell that the heart has occupied between the second and the fifth intercostal space. So the heart is situated between second and fifth intercostal space in the mediastinum, that is between the lungs. So that is the position of the heart. So next we are moving to the borders of the heart. So before going to the topic, once again I am telling you, borders of the heart is very important. Okay, so so many questions have come from this topic. So listen to the borders of the heart. Okay, so which are the borders of the heart? So first we will discuss about the right border. So the right border of the heart is formed by the right atrium. So okay, the questions will be coming like, which border occupies which chamber of the heart? So like that questions used to come. So listen to this. Okay, so the right border of the heart is occupied by the right atrium. Then next border is the inferior border. Okay, first we have told about the right border, next is the inferior border. So the inferior border of the heart is lying above the diaphragm. Okay, usually the heart rests above the diaphragm. So the inferior border of the heart is otherwise known as the diaphragmatic surface of the heart. So which is the diaphragmatic surface of the heart? That is the inferior border. So inferior border is formed by the right ventricle. Okay, so the right ventricle forms the inferior border of the heart, which is also known as the diaphragmatic surface of the heart. Why? Because means the heart is resting on the diaphragm. That's why. Okay, so next, an important border is the apex of the heart. So as far as any object is concerned, we may think that apex will be in the top, but in case of heart, the apex of the heart is situated in the lower part. Okay, the apex is the corner position of the heart. So anatomically, if we see the heart during its development, it has twisted a little towards the left. Okay, the heart itself is twisted towards the left. So the apex of the heart is formed by the left ventricle. Okay, apex of the heart is formed by the left ventricle. So what is apex? Okay, so where is apex and what is apex, that I'll discuss. Thing is, if in the left midclavicular line, if we draw an imaginary line till our nipple, the below the nipple we will get a point. So that point is termed as the apex of the heart, and in this position we can palpate the heart and we can hear the heart sounds at its best. Okay, so this point is also known as the point of maximum impulse. Okay, PMI, point of maximum impulse. So This is known as the apex of the heart, and it is situated in the fifth intercostal space. Clear? So the apex of the heart is formed by the left ventricle, and it can be palpated by measuring an imaginary line from the left mid clavicular area to the below of the nipple. Okay, so it is occupying in the fifth intercostal space, that is apex of the heart. So next, moving to the base of the heart. So here again you will get confusion with the inferior border of the heart. Inferior we have discussed, but the base of the heart is formed by the posterior part. Okay, base is situated in the posterior part. So posterior border also is known as the base of the heart, and it is formed by both left atrium and the right atrium, mainly by the left atrium. So the base of the heart is mainly formed by the left atrium, that is the posterior border of the heart. Okay, so next we will go to the anterior position of the heart. So if we see the heart from front, what it will be? Okay, so that side is occupied by the right atrium and the right ventricle. Okay, right atrium and right ventricle, that is the anterior border of the heart. And next is the superior border of the heart, what comes in the upper position. Okay, that is left atrium. Left atrium forms the superior border of the heart. So in the borders of the heart, we have discussed right border by the right atrium, inferior border, that is a diaphragmatic border by the right ventricle, then apex of the heart by the left ventricle, base of the heart, that is posterior part of the heart, by the right atrium and the left atrium, mainly by the left atrium, then anterior position, anterior border of the heart by the right atrium and the right ventricle, and superior border of the heart formed by the left atrium. So that's all about the borders of the heart. It's very important. Okay, now moving to the structure of the heart. So first of all, we will discuss some layers of the heart. Okay, there are 3 layers of heart is made up of 3 layers. So from inside to outside, they are named as endocardium, myocardium, epicardium. Okay, endocardium is the innermost layer of the heart, myocardium is the middle muscular layer of the heart, and the outer layer of the heart is called as the epicardium. So in exam point of view, I'll tell some 2-3 points. Okay, the innermost part is the endocardium. So our valves and the other musculatures, all these things are not musculatures, mainly the valves, they are originating from this endocardium, that is inside layer of the heart. Then one question has come like this: where are the coronary arteries situated? Coronary arteries, where it is? So it is between the epicardium and the myocardium. Okay, that is above the myocardium, coronary blood vessels. Then one more question: which is the muscular layer of the heart? Okay, that is the myocardium. Middle muscular layer is the myocardium, and the outer layer is the epicardium. So once again, I repeat: inner endocardium, middle myocardium, and the outer epicardium. Okay, so that's all about the layers of the heart. Now we will move on to one of the important structures associated with the heart, that is the pericardium. Okay, so pericardium is a fibrous protective covering of the heart. So heart is covered completely by the pericardium. So what is the function of the pericardium? So in the meaning itself we have explained. So it's a tough fibrous protective cover. Okay, the heart is anchored in that position, that is between the mediastinal space, by this pericardium. So it has attachments to all the nearby structures, and as we all know, heart beats continuously. So while beating also, the heart remains in this position with the help of this pericardium. Okay, so we will see which are the layers of pericardium. So again, pericardium is divided into 3 layers. So don't be confused with the layers of the heart. Layers of the heart is extremely different. We are discussing about the layers of pericardium. So pericardium is divided again into 3 layers. Okay, that is, one is fibrous pericardium. The outermost covering of the pericardium is called as the fibrous pericardium, and the innermost covering of the pericardium is known as the serous pericardium. Then there occurs a confusion. I have told that there are 3 layers. So the serous pericardium again divided into 2 layers, that is visceral pericardium and parietal pericardium. So from inside to outside, if you are explaining, that is visceral pericardium, parietal pericardium, fibrous pericardium. In this, the visceral and the parietal pericardium together forms the serous pericardium. Clear now? So these are the layers of pericardium. So the visceral pericardium, it is attached along with the epicardium of the heart. So as we already discussed, the epicardium is the outermost layer of the heart. So the outermost layer of the heart and the innermost layer of the pericardium is attached together. That is, visceral pericardium is attached to the epicardium of the heart. Okay. So another important point from pericardium, pericardial cavity and the pericardial fluid. So where is this cavity and the fluid remains? So it is there in the serous pericardium. It is a cavity is there between the serous in the serous pericardium itself. That means between parietal pericardium and the visceral pericardium. So the space between parietal and the visceral pericardium is called as the pericardial cavity, and in this cavity we have a fluid called pericardial fluid. Okay, so pericardial fluid is very important because it helps in the normal beating of the heart, normal contractions and the recoiling. Everything is happening because of the presence of pericardial fluid, and it helps lubricating the heart also. Okay, so there are some conditions where this serous pericardium become inflamed, and that condition is termed as the pericarditis, serous pericardium, that is both visceral and the parietal pericardium. So the inflammation of the serous pericardium is termed as pericarditis, and there is another condition called cardiac tamponade. So we will deal with it later in cardiac failure and other associated diseases. So cardiac tamponade also is a condition in which the pericardial fluid, excess of pericardial fluid will be there, and that prevents the heart from the proper contraction and recoiling. Okay, so and we will discuss it in later. So just keep in mind these two conditions, that is pericarditis and cardiac tamponade. Okay, so that's all about pericardium. So far we have discussed the size of the heart, the position of the heart, the layers of the heart, and the pericardium. Okay, so next we will move on to the most important chambers of the heart. Okay, so as we all know, we have 4 chambers in our heart, 2 atria and 2 ventricles. So one right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, and left ventricle. So we will see each chambers in detail in the sense in exam point of view, what all things we should know, that points only I will discuss. So some terms will be new for you, but still please don't skip the video. Okay, it is very important. So first of all, we will see the right atrium. So the right atrium, it is a receiving vesicle of the heart. Okay, receiving vesicle means blood, the deoxygenated blood from all part of the body will be collected in the right atrium. So that's why it is called as a receiving vesicle of the heart. So from where and all blood used to come, and through which portals blood used to enter the right atrium. So right atrium have some openings. I'll tell you the names of the openings. First one is the superior vena cava. So you all know from the upper part of the body, the deoxygenated blood will be returning back to the heart. That means the right atrium through the superior vena cava. Same like that, we have inferior vena cava that carries deoxygenated blood from the lower part of the body. So superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. Then please keep in mind one more structure, that is coronary sinus. What is coronary sinus? So like all other body parts, the heart itself has a venous supply, and there should be a venous return from the heart. So the venous return from the heart is carrying by the coronary sinus, and it is getting opened in the right ventricle. Okay, so that is coronary sinus. And one additional point, there are so many small veins that are opening directly into the right atrium, and these veins are named as the venae cordis minime. Venae cordis minime. These are small veins that are which are opening directly into the right atrium. So which all are the openings present in the right atrium? That is, one is the superior vena cava, then inferior vena cava, then coronary sinus, and finally venae cordis minime. Okay, these are the openings. So now we have seen in many contexts a word named auricle. So sometimes we may instead of telling atrium, we are telling, sometimes we can see mentions like auricle. So what is auricle? So as if we see the right atrium, so it is like 2 pouches. Okay, 2 pouches, one outer bigger pouch and a smaller inner pouch, and this smaller inner pouch is termed as the auricle. Okay, so don't be confused. The smaller inner pouch of the right atrium is named as the auricle. So this inner pouch and the outer pouch is slightly divided. Okay, there is a demarcation. So if we see the heart from outside, so there will be a shallow groove. Okay, shallow groove will be there from the outside that separates this inner pouch and the outer pouch. That means the inner auricle and the outer pouch. So the outside shallow groove is called as the sulcus terminalis. Okay, keep in mind this term sulcus terminalis, that is from outside if we see the heart there is a shallow groove, and this shallow groove is called as the sulcus terminalis. So if we dissect the heart and see, we can see inside a ridge that separates this inner pouch and the outer pouch. So this inside ridge is called as the crista terminalis. So don't be confused with these two terms. That is, one is sulcus terminalis, that is from the outside, and the another one is the crista terminalis, that is the inside. So okay, so keep these points in mind, sulcus terminalis and crista terminalis. So next is another point, musculae pectinati. What is musculae pectinati? So the anterior part of the right atrium, there are some muscle fibers. Okay, so some muscle fibers are there. See, these muscle fibers are named as musculae pectinati. Okay, so the anterior surface of the right atrium have some muscle fibers, and these muscle fibers are termed as musculae pectinati. Okay, so that's all about the right atrium. So just one term regarding the interatrial septum. Interatrial septum means that is the right atrium and the left atrium is separated by a septum called as a interatrial septum. Okay, so in the fetal circulation, okay, when in the fetus there will be an opening in this septum, and this opening is known as the foramen ovale. Okay, what is foramen ovale? It's a opening in the interatrial septum that connects right atrium and the right ventricle, right atrium and the left atrium while in the fetal circulation, in the fetus. So after the birth, what happens is this foramen ovale will close. Okay, that is normal, it should happen. Okay, the foramen ovale used to close, and in the adult we can see a mild depression in this septum, and this depression is termed as the fossa ovalis. Okay, just a term you just keep in mind. Okay, what is fossa ovalis? Fossa ovalis is a mild depression in the interatrial septum. Interatrial septum means between two atrias. Okay, that is the remnant, of foramen ovale. Okay, foramen ovale was the opening between left atrium and the right atrium, and after the birth this foramen ovale will close, leaving a small depression, and this depression is termed as fossa ovalis. Okay, so in right atrium, so far we have discussed these terms. I'll conclude. What is auricle? That is the inner pouch. What is sulcus terminalis? That is outer shallow groove is there, that is sulcus terminalis. Inner ridge is there, that is crista terminalis. Then musculae pectinati, that is the muscle fibers. Then fossa ovalis and foramen ovale. Okay, so that's all about the right atrium. So what happens? Blood, what is coming from the different parts of the body, from the right atrium, it goes to right ventricle. So between this right atrium and the right ventricle, a valve is there, and that valve is called as the tricuspid valve. Okay, so we will see in detail about the valves later. So the tricuspid valve is situated between a right atrium and the right ventricle, and it regulates the blood flow from right atrium to right ventricle. Okay, that's all about the right atrium. So we will move to the next chamber, that is right ventricle. Okay, so right ventricle is very muscular compared to the right atrium. Right ventricle is very much muscular, and the shape of the right ventricle is almost like a triangle. Okay, the shape of the right ventricle is triangular, and it is very much muscular. And now we are going to discuss some terms. Okay, these terms are very important. Okay, some terms I will explain. First one is the trabeculae carneae. What is called as the trabeculae carneae? Okay, trabeculae carneae means the right ventricle is covered by series of muscular elevations. Okay, so many muscular elevations we can see in the right ventricle. These elevations are called as the trabeculae carneae. What is trabeculae carneae? Muscular elevations which can be seen in the right ventricle is termed as trabeculae carneae. So why it is important is trabeculae carneae can be seen in the right ventricle in three forms. Okay, one, it will be formed as a ridges, as I told, some ridges, and one form is the bridge. So what is bridge? Bridge means in the ventricle itself, in the right ventricle itself, from one side of the right ventricle to the other side of the right ventricle, there will be a connection. Okay, so that is the bridge. So what is the peculiarity of this bridge is, in this bridge, the middle there is no connection. Instead, in that place is the AV node is situated. So why I have explained about this much is the AV node is situated in this bridge, which is formed by the trabeculae carneae. And another formation of this trabeculae carneae is the pillar. Okay, we have told about the ridges, the bridges, and finally the pillars. So what are these pillars? These pillars are called as the papillary muscles. Okay, these are papillary muscles are very much important. So what is papillary muscle? The muscular elevations, that is the trabeculae carneae, will form like a pillar, and this pillar is called as the papillary muscle. Okay, so what is the importance of papillary muscle in the anatomy of the heart? What is its importance means, from this papillary muscles, some fibrous band of tissues are there, some fibrous band of tissues that will attach to the cusp of tricuspid valve. Okay, the cusp of tricuspid valve is attached by some fibrous band which is starting from this papillary muscles, and these fibrous bands are termed as chordae tendineae. Okay, so chordae tendineae. What is chordae tendineae? So from the tip of the papillary muscle, some fibrous band of tissue starts and it attached to the cusp of valves. Okay, these fibrous band is known as the chordae tendineae. So now I'll tell what are the functions of this papillary muscle, what is the function of this chordae tendineae. So we know that when the ventricular systole happens, so prior to the ventricles getting contracts, these papillary muscles will contract. Okay, so first this papillary muscle will contract. So when papillary muscles contract, what happens? This fibrous band, that is chordae tendineae, this chordae tendineae also will contract. So that will result in the leaflets of the valve to close. Okay, so as I discussed, this chordae tendineae, they are connecting to the cusp of the valves. So when papillary muscles contract, this chordae tendineae also will be contracting, and it will result in the closure of the closure of the valves, that prevents the regurgitation of the black flow of the blood from the ventricle to the atrium. So that's why I explained this much regarding trabeculae carneae and these papillary muscles. Understood, no? So an important question: how many papillary muscles are there in the right side of the heart? How many papillary muscles are there? So there are 3 cusp. Okay, tricuspid valve, 3 cusp are there. So 3 papillary muscles are there. So 3 papillary muscles, from there chordae tendineae will arise, and that will attach to the 3 cusp of the tricuspid valve. So 3 papillary muscles are there. Okay, so right ventricle also we are about to finish, and when it is from the right ventricle, blood will flow to the pulmonary trunk through an opening, and in that area what will happen is, as I discussed earlier, this right ventricle is like triangular shape. So in the towards the pulmonary trunk opening, the musculature, the muscular structures, that means the trabeculae carneae and all, is very much less compared to the upper part, and it will form like a cone, and this part is termed as the conus arteriosus, and sometimes it is also known as the infundibulum. So infundibulum, conus arteriosus. Okay, so from there it opens into the pulmonary trunk, and the blood flows into the pulmonary artery, and from there to the lungs. Okay, for perfusion. Understood, now? For oxygenation. So right atrium is over, right ventricle also is over. Okay, so the next chamber is the left atrium. So so as we discussed, the blood from the pulmonary trunk will goes to 2 pulmonary arteries. From there it goes to lungs, and after oxygenation through pulmonary veins. From each lung 2 pulmonary veins are there. So from these 2 pulmonary veins, so total 4 pulmonary veins are there. So from pulmonary veins, blood will be collecting back to the left atrium. So we will discuss regarding left atrium. So the left atrium itself is formed as a continuation of these pulmonary veins. So as I discussed, there are 4 pulmonary veins, and right atrium is the continuation of these 4 pulmonary veins. And like right atrium, left atrium also have an inner pouch, and that is known as the auricle, and left atrium also have that musculi pectinati. I told that anterior surface have some muscle fibers, and this musculi pectinati also is there in the left atrium. So that's all regarding the left atrium. So from the left atrium, blood will flow to the left ventricle. So the left atrium and the left ventricle there is a connection, there is a valve in between. That valve is known as the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve. Okay, mitral or the bicuspid valve. So blood has reached in the left ventricle now. So now we will discuss regarding the left ventricle. So left ventricle is the most important part of our heart, and it is the most powerful area of the heart, and it is the most muscular part of the heart. Okay, the most muscular, the most powerful part of the heart is the right ventricle. It is completely muscular. Okay, why? Because the blood has to be pumped to all parts of the body from the right ventricle. Okay, sorry, from the left ventricle. So left ventricle is the most muscular part of the heart. Okay, so it has an enormous number of muscle fibers, then well developed trabecular cardiac and papillary muscles. How many papillary muscles will be there in the left ventricle? It will be two papillary muscles are there. Why? Because bicuspid valve is situated there. So to holding these two bicuspid valves, two papillary muscles are there, which is attached with the caudate tendineae. Okay, so in total in the heart, how many papillary muscles are there? There are total 5 papillary muscles, 3 in the right and 2 in the left, and altogether 5 papillary muscles. So that's all regarding the left ventricle. So so we have covered almost all 4 chambers of the heart. So each point is very much important, so please keep it in mind. Okay, so we will be moving to the next portion of anatomy of the heart, that is great vessels. So already we have discussed about the great vessels, but still I'll summarize it. So the 2 vessels that brings blood to the right atrium, that is superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. Then the blood that pumps to the lungs for oxygenation, that is through the pulmonary trunk, then pulmonary circulation. So we will explain it in 2 headings, that is systemic circulation and pulmonary circulation. Systemic and pulmonary circulation. So the circulatory system itself is a vast topic, and we will have a video later, so I'll just summarize. Okay, so the systemic circulation means from the left ventricle through the aorta. What will happen is, through the aorta the blood will carry to the ascending aorta, then it will form as an arch, and it curves back to the back side of the heart, and it will descend in the thoracic region, that is thoracic aorta, then going down to the abdominal aorta, and everywhere they will keep on branches to supply the other parts and other organs of the body, and it will go like that. So, okay, we will discuss it in later. And concerned with the pulmonary circulation, what is happening is, from the pulmonary trunk, so 2 pulmonary arteries will develop, and each artery will go to the lungs. So keep in mind, pulmonary artery is the only artery in our body which carries deoxygenated blood. Okay, so 2 pulmonary arteries are there that will go to the lungs, and from there it get oxygenated, and it will be carried back to the heart through pulmonary veins. So as we discussed, there are 4 pulmonary veins total in our body which carries oxygenated blood from the heart, from the lungs, and it will be collected in the left atrium. Okay, so these are the great vessels associated with the heart. So the vascular structure we will deal later in another video. So that's all about the great vessels of the heart. Then moving to the valves of the heart, the most important valves of the heart. So as we all know, we have 4 valves in the heart. 2 types, 4 valves. So already we have discussed regarding the 2 AV valves, that is atrioventricular valves. That is, one is the tricuspid valve, which is situated in the right side of the heart, which separates right atrium and right ventricle. And same like that, in the left side of the heart we have bicuspid valve or the mitral valve, which have 2 cusps that separates left atrium and the left ventricle. So these are the atrioventricular valves. The number of cusp is very much important. Tricuspid means 3 cusp, bicuspid means 2 cusp. Bicuspid valve is also known as mitral valve. Okay, So same like that, we have two semi-lunar valves, okay, two AV valves and two semi-lunar valves. Semi-lunar valves, again we have two, that is aortic valve and the pulmonic valve. Aortic and pulmonic. So where these pulmonic and aortic valves are situated? Pulmonic valve is situated in the in the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, blood flows to the pulmonary trunk. So there is the position of the pulmonic valve. Okay, pulmonic valve positioned in the pulmonary trunk, that guards the blood flow to the pulmonary artery, so that there is a pulmonic valve. Then next is the aortic valve. So as the name indicates, it is in the aorta, that is in the left ventricle. When the left ventricle undergoes systole, that means the contraction, what will happen is this aortic valve will open. Okay, so one aortic valve, one pulmonic valve forms the semilunar valves, and two atrioventricular valves, altogether four valves in our body. Then just a small information. So we have discussed about the number of cusps in atrioventricular valves. Then how many cusps are there in the semilunar valves? Same, these semilunar valves also have three cusps. So only the bicuspid valve is only having two cusps. Rest all valves of the heart contains three cusps. Okay, clear? So that's all about the valves of the heart. Okay. So next we are going to discuss regarding the most important aspect of anatomy of the heart, that is blood supply of the heart. So blood supply of the heart itself is a very vast topic. So whatever important only will be discussed in this session. So we will see what all these points are. Okay. So blood supply of the heart is done by the coronary arteries. So from where this coronary arteries originates? So in the aorta, there is a point called as the aortic sinus. From the aortic sinus, these coronary arteries are originating. This coronary artery branches into two main branches, that is left coronary artery and the right coronary artery. And there are so many divisions and branches of these arteries. We are not going in depth into this topic. What it is important as far as exams are concerned is the area of supply. So each artery where it supplies, that we will see. Okay, that is very important. So first we will deal with the right coronary artery. So as the name indicates, the right coronary artery supplies the right side of the heart, especially the right atrium. Okay, the right atrium, then the inferior portion of the left ventricle. So left ventricle also it is supplying, but it is only in the inferior portion. And in the conducting system, SA node and the AV node is supplied by the right coronary artery. So right coronary artery supplies the right atrium, the inferior part of the left ventricle, SA node and the AV node. And right coronary artery, there are so many branches like right marginal artery, posterior interventricular branch, like that. These branches are there, but just keep in mind that right coronary artery supplies right atrium, inferior portion of the left ventricle, SA node and the AV node. So moving to the left coronary artery. So left coronary artery, there are two main branches. There are so many branches, but two main branches we have to keep it in mind. The first one is the left anterior descending artery. Left anterior descending artery. Left anterior descending artery is also known as the anterior interventricular artery. Anterior interventricular artery. So where this anterior interventricular or left anterior descending artery supplies, it supplies the anterior wall of the left ventricle. Okay, so anterior wall of the left ventricle, then apex is supplied by the left anterior descending artery. So the another important branch of left coronary artery is the circumflex artery. So circumflex artery supplies the left atrium, then the lateral and the posterior wall of the left ventricle. So altogether, left ventricle is supplied by first right coronary artery, that is the inferior wall, then left anterior descending artery, the anterior wall of the left ventricle, then apex, then the circumflex artery supplies the lateral and the posterior wall of the left ventricle and the left atrium. So these are the areas where the coronary arteries supplies. Okay, so left coronary artery, main branches are left anterior descending artery and the circumflex artery. And apart from that, one marginal artery also is there, but these two arteries are most important, left anterior descending artery and the circumflex artery. So that's all regarding the blood supply of the heart. So next we will see the venous return. Venous return of the heart is done by which way? So in the beginning itself we have told about the coronary sinuses. So coronary sinus is opening into the right atrium. That is, a venous return of the whole heart is brought back to the coronary sinus. So the whole heart is supplied by some veins. There are 5 different types of veins. So we will see the names of these veins. Okay, just names you please remember, that is enough. Okay, so the names of the cardiac veins are the greater cardiac veins, the small cardiac vein, the middle cardiac vein, the left marginal vein, and the left posterior ventricular vein. Okay, these are the 5 veins: greater cardiac vein, small cardiac vein, middle cardiac vein, left marginal vein, left posterior ventricular vein. So these 5 veins all together returns the blood to the coronary sinus, and from the coronary sinus it will reach to the right atrium and it will go into the circulation. So that is the venous supply, venous return of the heart. So blood supply and venous supply is over. So next we will move on to the last topic, that is the nervous supply of the heart. So we all know that the heart rate, the working of the heart is regulated by the brain. In the brain, the part is the medulla oblongata. Okay, so the medulla oblongata we can divide into 2 parts, the upper part and the lower part. The upper part is called as the cardiac acceleratory center. Okay, cardio acceleratory center. That is the pressor part. The upper part of the medulla oblongata is the pressor part, and it is called as the cardio acceleratory center. So in the name itself, we can come to know that it is an acceleration. That means the heart rate will be increased. So sympathetic nerve fibers are arising from the pressor part, that is the upper part of the medulla oblongata. Same way, the lower part is the depressor part. Okay, depressor part, that is a cardio inhibitory center. So cardio acceleratory center in the upper part, cardio inhibitory center in the lower part. So cardio inhibitory center, parasympathetic nerve fibers are arising, and this will cause reduction in the heart rate. So altogether, this area is called as a cardiac center. Like upper part is a cardio acceleratory center and lower part is a cardio inhibitory center. So sympathetic nerve fibers are arising from cardiac upper part of the medulla oblongata, which increases the heart rate, and parasympathetic nerve fibers that will decreases the heart rate. It's clear. So one doubt definitely we will get, like so when heart attack or MI occurs, we have explained like the pain will be radiating type of pain in the upper arms, in the around the chest, backside of the chest, like that. So why this radiating pain is occurring? So some nerve fibers are there that is supplying the intercostal space, that is between the ribs. Some nerve fibers are supplying, that is the sensory part of sympathetic nerve fibers. So these sensory part of sympathetic nerve fibers of some nerves like T2, T3 and T4, these are supplying into the ribs, and the T1 is supplying to the upper arm. So these are associated with the nervous supply of the heart. So whenever there is a damage like a MI, so pain will be originating from these areas, and these pain are we refer to as the anginal pain or the heart attack. Okay, so that's all about the nervous system of the heart. So nervous supply of the heart. So with that we are coming to the end of this session. So in this session we have explained only regarding the anatomy, that means the size of the heart, the position of the heart, border, structure, pericardium, great vessels, then aorta, valves of the heart, then chambers of the heart, blood supply, venous return, and the nervous supply. So hope you like this video, you understand the video. So if you are having any doubt regarding this session, feel free to comment in the comment box. We will clear your doubts at the level best. So once again, if you like this video, try to share with your nursing friends and subscribe this channel. And once again, thank you for watching the video. So we will come with another topic shortly that we will intimate to you. So till that time, stay tuned, stay learning. Thank you. Thanks for watching the video. Thank you.